Africa is the second largest continent, surpassed the Asia, and it covers about one-fifth of the total land surface of Earth. The continent is bounded on the west by the Atlantic Ocean, on the north by the Mediterranean Sea, on the east by the Red Sea, and on the south by the mingling waters of the Atlantic and Indian Oceans. The peoples of Africa probably speak more languages than those of any other continent. Arabic is predominant from Egypt to Mauritania and in Sudan. Northern Africans speak a family of languages known as Afro-Asiatic. The vast majority of sub-Saharan people speaks Bantu languages of the Niger-Congo family, while smaller numbers in Central Africa speaks Nilo-Saharan languages, and in Southern Africa, Khoisan languages. What is African literature? African literature is the body of traditional oral and written literatures in the Afro-Asiatic and African languages, together with works written by Africans in European languages.
So let's proceed to the themes of African literature. The first one is the liberation and independence, disillusionment, reclaiming of voice and subjectivity, displacement of and ruthlessness, abusive power, negritude, social problem, the clash between indigenous and colonial cultures, condemnation of European subjugation, and pride in the African past, hope for the continent's independent future, and lastly is the struggle for national identity. So here are some example pictures ng themes of African literature. So the next one is the similarities and differences of Asian African literature and modern African literature. So for the similarities, some of these writings were simply reenactments of oral tradition. The African oral tradition literature has had a huge influence and impact on modern African literature. So for the differences, modern African literature is written in indigenous African languages and in European language used in America. For the African literature is very new compared to the indigenous oral tradition of literature which has been there and is still very much alive.
Albert Chinua Achebe, also known as Chinua Achebe, was born on November 16, 1930 in Ogidi, Nigeria, and died on March 21, 2013 in Boston, Massachusetts, from the United States. He is a Nigerian novelist and known as the grandfather of African literature. He was acclaimed for his unsentimental depictions of the social and psychological disorientation accompanying the imposition of Western customs and values upon traditional African society. His particular concerns was with emergent Africa at its moments of crisis. His novels range in subject matter from the first contact of an African village with the white man to the educated Africans' attempt to create a firm moral order out of the changing values in a large city. Some of his literary works are Things Fall Apart, published in 1958, Arrow of God in 1964, No Longer at Ease in 1960, A Man of the People in 1966, Anthills of the Savannah, published in 1987, and Home and Exile in year 2000. Chinua Achebe published his first novel entitled Things Fall Apart in 1958. Achebe wrote this novel in response to European novels that depicted Africans as savages who needed to be enlightened by the Europeans. Achebe presents to the readers his people's history with both strengths and imperfections by describing, for example, Igbo festivals, the worship of their gods and the practices of their ritual ceremonies, the rich culture and other social practices, the colonial era, that was both stopping Igbo culture and also brought in some benefits to their culture. Things Fall Apart therefore directs the misleading of European novels that depict Africans as savages into whole new light with its portrayal of Igbo society and examines the effects of European colonialism on Igbo society from an African perspective. Hence, this novel is an attempt to show an insight of pre- and post-colonialism on Igbo society. It is argued that the interaction between the whites and the Igbo people had both negative and positive consequences. It is evident in Achebe's work that the Europeans greatly influenced the lifestyle of Igbo society.
For me, the importance of learning African literature is to gain a lot of knowledge and understanding about their history, cultures, tradition, and their languages. Also, the famous literary pieces of Africa.
Literature consists of oral or written literary works written during the day. So, it is important to learn and to understand the literature, specifically the African literature, because it allows the readers or the person itself to familiarize, to learn how to think critically, and to appreciate on what happened in the past with the use of different literary works.